Hello guys, so welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video about French culture. So ever since I started working at a French company and ever since I spend a lot more time with French people at work these days, I kind of started to deconstruct a lot of the misconceptions that I had about French culture and French people. I feel like these days I understand French culture a lot better than I did before, and so I kind of just wanted to make a video about some of the misconceptions that foreigners have about French people and French culture, because it's never easy to talk about a culture and it's never easy to make videos about a culture, especially when you're a foreigner and you're just basically talking about your observations, because what you see is obviously not the truth. It's part of the truth, whatever the truth is. But in this video I kind of just wanted to talk about the misconceptions that a lot of us foreigners have about France and French people. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you feel like doing it. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so the first misconception is not everyone lives in Paris, and Paris is not France. So I actually get so much shit about this on my videos where I talk about like French culture and stereotypes regularly, because a lot of people who come from different cities than Paris always like to comment on my videos saying that, oh, this is only true for Parisians. Oh, I'm so tired that every foreigner thinks that Paris is France, and they're kind of right. Like, I understand what they say. Paris is definitely not France, and I feel like a lot of times people and like foreigners who come to visit France always spend time in Paris. So when they encounter rude French people, for example, or when they have bad experiences with French people, they tend to construct this image that every single French person is rude and that all French people are like Parisians, and this is obviously not the case. Even among French people, it's very known that Parisians are kind of ruder than the rest of French population. Like, there's this stereotype going on among French people that basically Parisians are rude and gloomy and sad and stressed, and they are always in a hurry and they're always stressed and that they're always complaining. And then there's this image of like people living outside of Paris are so much more chilled out and kind and less stressed and more joyous, and they smile more. So keep that in mind, that if you come to France and you only visit Paris and you don't see any other French cities, or you don't encounter any other French people than Parisians, just make sure that you don't think that that's all France is, because France is so much more complex and richer, and Paris is not France, and Parisians are not the only French people living in France. So if you ever have bad experiences with Parisians, just don't think that all French people are like that. And also don't think that just because you meet a couple of bad people or you have a couple of bad experiences that everyone in France is like mean and rude, because you will obviously find good and bad people everywhere you go. So the second misconception that people tend to have about French people is not everybody in France is stylish. When I first moved to Paris, I moved here for modeling. It was kind of like a big surprise to me that Parisians and like French people in general are really not that fashionable. I mean, you can definitely find a lot of people here who are very much into fashion. There are a lot of fashionistas all over the country. There are a lot of people who are very creative when it goes to their fashion. There are a lot of people who are very expressive, especially in like bigger cities. I'm just gonna mention Paris again because this is where I live. In Paris, when I'm in the city, when I'm like taking the metro, when I'm walking around, I see a lot of super stylish people who are very cool and are very expressive in their fashion. But you can also definitely find a lot of people who couldn't care less about fashion. We definitely have a lot of French icons who revolutionized fashion, but not everybody is a Coco Chanel. Not everybody is like a fashionista. I actually thought when I first moved here that French people would dress better, but they're just very average. Not everybody is like a big fashionista. A lot of people really couldn't care less. A lot of people just wear whatever they want. A lot of people obviously don't even have enough money to afford to go shopping every single week. Also, French people's fashion have been definitely influenced by other countries. So a lot of people have like this Japanese kawaii look. A lot of people dress like Kim Kardashian. So it's very, very different. It's very complex. Okay, so the next misconception. Some French people actually do speak English. For the longest time, foreigners had this, I guess, misconception that nobody speaks English in France. To be honest, it's kind of true. In general, French people are just not that good in languages. There are statistics that prove that French students are basically one of the worst students when it comes to learning English. I even wrote down that French students come 29th out of 72 test countries, behind South Korea and Italy when it comes to learning English. However, you can never just say that the whole population is bad at speaking English, because especially in like bigger cities such as Paris, Marseille, Lyon, you will always find people who can speak English, especially like the younger generations. The younger generations definitely speak better English than the older ones. So do French people suck at speaking English? Yeah, they do. They are really not that talented in speaking English, but it doesn't mean that nobody speaks the language. So what I recommend you when you come to France, if you ever need like help with directions, or even if you just want to make friends, definitely try making friends and ask people for directions from like the younger generation, from like young people. You have higher chances of finding young people who can speak English than older people who can speak English. French people are not the best at speaking English, but you can obviously also find a lot of people who speak very well English, who lived abroad, who are bilingual, who learned English and now they can communicate super well and express themselves. Also, you can even find people who speak multiple languages. One of my colleagues at work, for example, he speaks like 5 languages and he's French and he's super good at languages. So you can never just say about a whole country, about the whole nation that they cannot speak English. Okay, so the next misconception is not everybody is a smoker in France. This is another misconception that a lot of people have about the French, and I myself even brought up this stereotype about French people that everybody smokes in Paris and that people smoke everywhere. And to be honest, it's kind of true, but it's not that true at the same time, and I will tell you exactly why. So according to a recent statistic, French people don't actually smoke more than any other European country. According to a 21 survey, France is actually only the 7th country in Europe when it comes to the number of smokers per nation. So even though I still stand by the fact that a lot of people do smoke in France, they apparently don't smoke that much more compared to other European countries. So I guess the problem isn't with France, the problem is with Europe. I honestly think that I had this misconception and like stereotype because where I come from, so I come from Hungary, and compared to Hungary and Hungarians, French people do smoke a lot more. And it's not just that, but also in Hungary we have so much more restrictions when it comes to where you can smoke in public. So for example, in Hungary, you cannot smoke at bus stops, metro stops, in schools. You cannot even smoke in dorms, in university dorms, I think. So we have a lot of restrictions when it comes to smoking in Hungary. And so I pretty much grew up with not seeing a lot of people smoke around me. Nobody smokes in my family. And even on the streets, out in public, there are a lot of restrictions that keep people from smoking. In France, you also have a lot of restrictions when it comes to where you can smoke legally in public. But the problem with French people is that they don't follow the rules. For example, it's illegal to smoke at metro stations. Nevertheless, can you sometimes see people smoke at metro stops and smoke not just cigarettes, but also marijuana? Yes, you can. I even think that you can see people smoke marijuana more often than you can see people smoke cigarettes in France, and especially in Paris. Like, people smoke so much weed here. I don't know why, even though it's not even legal. It's maybe true that French people don't smoke that much more than other European countries. The problem is that because they don't follow the rules, because they break the rules of where they can smoke, I feel like this is why I had the illusion or like the misconception that people smoke everywhere in Paris, because people smoke even where they're not supposed to smoke. So if only French people followed the rules, we wouldn't think that everyone smokes in Paris. So, okay, so the next misconception is French people are not lazy at work. And French people are not lazy workers. This stereotype was born out of the fact that in France you have 5 weeks of paid annual vacation. You legally can only work 35 hours a week. And I already talked a lot about this, and it's one of my favorite topics to talk about when it comes to like French culture, because it is an aspect of French culture that I really admire, and I think it's super cool that people don't overwork themselves. That being said, does it mean that they're lazy? Not at all. France is actually considered to be one of the most productive nation in the whole world. They are super productive, even though they don't work nearly as much as a lot of other countries. The difference between France and other countries where people work extra hard is that French people, when they feel like they're not being productive and when they feel like they're just wasting their time at work and that they can no longer focus and get anything done, they take a break or they go home. French people know when to take breaks. French people know when they're no longer being productive, and French people in general know how to balance their work life. I'm not saying that everybody is like that, and you obviously find a lot of workaholics in France too, a lot of people who work overtime, a lot of people who work a lot more than just 35 hours a week. I would say in general, people don't devote all of their energy and all of their time to work. I feel like in France, enjoying life and enjoying your life and traveling and eating well and drinking well and socializing and spending time with your family and friends is very, very important. It's very important in France to live your life and not just live your life for your work. So I think that this is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that it helped you to clear out some of the misunderstandings and misconceptions that you might have about French people and French culture. Let me know what you think, especially if you're French. Let me know please what you think. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you don't agree with me, so I can also learn new things. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe. I will see you next week. Bye!